Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset when it comes to faith, family, fitness, and food. Let's go. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello and welcome to another episode of I Can Do. I am Benjamin Lee. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope and pray all is well with you. Well, today we have another special guest on the show. Really excited about this show. Today we have Haley Kilpatrick. Haley Kilpatrick is the founder of the national nonprofit organization called Girl Talk. Girl Talk was founded in 2002 in Albany, Georgia, and serves more than 75,000 girls throughout North America and beyond. The organization provides a leadership opportunity for high school girls to mentor middle school girls by leading a Girl Talk chapter in their communities each week throughout the school year. Girl Talk exists to help to inspire all girls to develop the confidence to lead. Haley believes that if girls have the tools to lead a confident life, they will grow into women who support and encourage one another. Girl Talk's goal is to provide the necessary resources at no cost for all girls during their most formative years. Haley's dedication to helping young girls inspired her to write the best-selling book, The Drama Years, posted or published by Simon & Schuster, which is a guidebook for parents and educators to help girls navigate the often difficult transition into adolescence. She is currently leading research and working with thought leaders to help better understand how to address what's coined the confidence crisis facing women and girls. Her hope is that her work will help to instill the values that will help girls grow up to become kind, confident women. She serves as a contributor for NBC's Today Show and CNN, has been featured on NBC Nightly News, HLN, and Forbes. Haley received the 2016 National Point of Light Tribute Award and has been named one of Glamour Magazine's 20 Young Women Changing the World Now and People Magazine's All-Star Among Us, among many other honors. She regularly volunteers, contributes, and writes for publications and documentaries that invest in girls. Some of her recent efforts include She Is Without Limits, Hear Me Now, The Body Image Workbook for Teens, Bullying Workbook for Teens, Quiet Influence, and Bully. She is proud to serve on the Boys and Girls Club of America's Smart Girls Advisory Board and have been a founding board member to two nonprofits that she wholeheartedly believes in, I Am That Girl and Team Summer. Haley lives in Atlanta, Georgia, with her husband Paul and their daughters Grace and Kate. I am so thankful that Haley agreed to be a part of the show, and I really appreciate all that she does, especially even for my wife, Nikki, as you'll hear about in our conversation here. She's been a great encouragement to me and to so many others, and I know that this conversation will be a great encouragement to you as well. Enjoy the show.
On the way that she did, I am everything.
A very wise woman. Everything. The truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. We're everything.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been an interesting week with Nikki, having the surgery, and thank the Lord things are going well with her. And my mom, right. she's been here with us, and my sister's been here. She's here with us now, but we've just had so much love and attention from so many people, and appreciate you and the rest of the family and all the support that so many people have given us. So it's just a part of. It's been a blessing that we've been able to actually get the surgery done during this time, because when I went in there, I think they had maybe 3 outpatient procedures that day. So there's like hardly anybody there. Yeah, there's like hardly anybody there. And then after her procedure, she was in the recovery room probably for about 40 minutes. And then I got to see her about 20 seconds in the hallway. So, I mean, she was already knocked out. So, but you can't go upstairs. You can't go up to the room.
It is, it's just strange times. And my husband works in healthcare and there, he works in an endoscopy suite. So it's considered, non-essential, but it is essential. And they're having to deal with the ebbs and flows there too of, colonoscopies are, essential for a lot of people, but the flow of people and the rules, people receiving anesthesia, but then they can't have their designated partner there in the waiting room. So it's we're all learning. That's part of my Tetris comment. It's just all just learning, like, okay, not here, but here, this works. Okay, let's try this. But I'm so grateful that that this is behind Nikki, and that the journey to healing can begin for her. She is such a warrior.
Yeah, she has. And for those who are listening, Nikki is the one that really connected the two of us with her volunteer work with Girl Talk. So what's going on with Girl Talk? It sounds like you had a pretty busy week this week. And what's Girl Talk all about?
So we are so blessed to have Nikki's servant heart. I'll share a little bit about the background of the organization and what we're all about, and then how we've had to pivot with coronavirus here. It's been interesting. So Girl Talk it's a national nonprofit. We serve middle and high school girls. High school girls develop leadership skills while mentoring their younger peers. So middle school girls, and guiding them through the most formative years of their lives. I tell parents all the time, formative years can seem a little ambiguous to parents, but those are the Sharpie years, 5th through 8th grade. Any woman in your life, any girl in your life can tell you that what happened in her life that helped shape her into who she is, both good and bad, and they have a permanent, lasting impression. So our goal and mission at Girl Talk is to equip these young girls with high school mentors who are their primary influencers, and help their confidence not peak. And research shows that a girl's confidence peaks at age 9. That is very daunting as a mother of 2 girls.
Yeah.
And it takes women like Nikki, who will raise their hand, open their minds and hearts to coming alongside the high school girls and really mentoring them and believing in them that they can run what is called a Girl Talk chapter and really help shape these young girls' hearts and make sure that their confidence doesn't plateau.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And what you're doing is really an I can do attitude. And it's really just so impactful to see. I think Girl Talk is in 49 states. Has it hit 50?
You are so good. We're looking for people in North Dakota. So
yeah, I still need to work on that.
We need you.
Yeah. So what was it that really led you? I know your mom has had a big impact in your life, and I definitely want to talk about her. But what was it that got you moving so to the point that Girl Talk came to be?
So I went from really an inner city magnet school program where we were all so close. We didn't see affluence and poverty. We all just kind of coexisted together and had each other's backs. And I shifted in middle school to a college prep school. And both of my parents will tell you, even today, their biggest dream was having 3 kids, know that education was the key. Not out of where we were, because we're all so proud of where we're from, but it was the key to growth, both spiritually, mentally, and it would always make sure that a great education would always make sure we had opportunities. So I shifted to a private school environment in 6th grade, and it was very different than what I had known. And I felt like, and at the time, I really did feel like I was the only one who wasn't included or invited, or had friends who were friends one day and not the other day. And as that evolved, it became more of asking bigger questions. And we just kind of talked about these formative Sharpie years. So for anyone listening, if you have a young girl in your life, these years are so paramount in knowing who you are, what you stand for, and honestly, how you perceive yourself and the gifts you can offer this world. And for me, just tiny little heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak would happen as a result of relationships with my peers. And more days I went home tear-filled
Mm.
And I definitely think it made my parents question, we're both working multiple jobs to try to make these sacrifices so you can pursue your education, yet your confidence is being crushed.
Mm.
And I think now as a parent looking at how hard that must have been for them to witness, I didn't have an older sister. I was the oldest. I didn't know this was coming. And I want to just share that I definitely saw my confidence nosedive. And the inspiration for Girl Talk was knowing that my sister did have an older sister and there was something that I could do about it. And that is the heart of why it started. And you know, and Nikki knows that I thought maybe 5 or 6 girls would show up, and God definitely had bigger plans.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just so amazing seeing you had this idea. And I think it's really fascinating how we can start off with something small. And certainly we give all glory to God where something small can turn into, kind of like what Jesus said, giving someone a cup of water, how it can turn into something really big where I think you have about 70,000 girls involved or connected with it throughout the world.
We closed out this year having served, it will have been 75,000 girls.
Wow. So I was going to ask you another question. You have written a book as well, kind of connected to Girl Talk and these teenage years. I have a couple of questions. First, why did you decide to write the book, and what's the book all about?
So the Drama Years is a compilation of about 2,000 hours worth of research, anecdotal research, talking to middle and high school girls, girls who are out of high school and now into college, looking back kind of retrospectively, and some parents. And there was a little bit of my journey woven in. The goal was never a book. We did this research thinking it would help us with our parent workshops and our programming. As Girl Talk began to grow, and we saw that there was a need much bigger than what I knew. I mean, I thought this was just a problem in my school, in my little hometown. And as my eyes began to be opened, realized that girls all over the country and the world struggled during these years. And how can we find some common themes, things that parents were doing that were right, that girls were doing that were right? What was working in this age where technology was starting to grow and become more rampant in our worlds, and especially in our young girls' lives? And so we did 2,000 hours worth of research, and our findings, there were 3 key findings, and I'm happy to share, but
Sure.
that just lit a fire in me. And I'm like, we have to share this.
Yeah.
So it too started with this small idea. And when that's combined with the story that God's already written for our lives, beautiful things happened. We pitched it to 3 publishers, Simon & Schuster, grabbed it up, and we launched. Our first day was on the Today Show, and it had a book tour. And when God's hand is in it, like I said, just things that don't have an explanation happen, and it will definitely serve as the highlight of my career.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea. We're starting small. I think about the story with the Israelites and how God told them, they weren't going to get the land in a year, but he was going to give it to them little by little. And I like that mindset of little by little. I'm always curious with books. So from start to finish, how long was the process? So I know you did all this research. You got all fired up and like, we have to share this. So from start to finish, how long did that take to get it out in the bookstores?
So I signed the contract the week before our wedding, which was the first week in October 2010.
Yeah.
And we did have a lot of the research done on the front end.
Sweet.
And then the book launched April 4th, 2012. So it was a full year and a half later till it was on bookshelves. And it was a really, it's a tedious task, but we had a great team. And that is the gift of having a publisher and a team of editors. And we had a lot of girls. We had parents and girls serving, would come into the office and give us feedback. But I think you are a shining example. You are destined to be an author. Nikki and I pray about it. We're already praying about it. But it's one of those things where when you feel like you learn something that is unique, that is not already out there, and you can bring that to light. It almost becomes very convicting, and you're like, okay, I have an obligation here.
You have to do it.
Really powerful.
Yeah, I've heard authors, when you get to that point and it's just like you can't contain it, you have to write it. It doesn't matter if you have to stay up late every evening or work or wake up early, it just has to come out of you. So, all right, I have to ask you another question connected to books. And maybe you can give us a sneak peek if there is a sneak peek. Are you working on any new projects, any new books?
Good question. The main books that I'm working on are reading to my little people right now. Because it's involved. I will tell you the research that I've felt compelled to share and have been working on for several years now are around the confidence crisis facing young girls and what we as parents can do to help them, teachers and administrators, but also the power of peer mentoring and really doing a deeper dive on that. Whether it will become a published book, only God knows, but I do know that we really are finding a correlation with technology, a young girl's mental health, and then also her confidence. So there is something there. I do it. It's really a passion project and dive in and into that when I feel drawn to it. But no active book writing in the process.
It was worth a shot.
How about you?
Well, I have, I've kind of been on a journey too, and I want to talk a little bit about this confident crisis. So I have, I've created some books. I've created some motivational coloring books. All of the things that I've created have been based upon faith, family, fitness, and food. I know that all four of those are important to you as well. So, it's been motivational type stuff and writing. The reason why I was asking about the books too, because I'm always impressed with someone who's able to produce one. It's just one of the hardest things to do. So I was in this particular group where I was getting some coaching with writing and some other skills. And I still do a little bit of writing, but I've slowed down like on my blogs. I think I've written about 500 and some of those are long, some of those are short, but I think my strong suit is with public speaking. So I've been doubling down on public speaking and I've been getting some coaching actually through Ultra Speaking. There's a website, ultraspeaking.com, and there's two guys there, Michael and Tristan. So they have really helped me out these last 4.5 months. So I don't know. I've kind of laid the writing to the side. It's hard to do. And that's why I'm always curious, how do people get all of this out and how long does it take? Because it's so easy, I think, to get in this trap of, you see these ads and you see all these different programs that are out there. Hey, you can write a book in 30 days. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe some people can. Yeah, maybe you can. But I'm just really, it's a big deal to be able to have something published like that. So job well done. I wanted to ask you. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that is all God because there's not an earthly explanation for that. But I'm excited about you and speaking. But I don't know. There's definitely something in the literary world that's got your name on it. You just have such a gift.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And I'll put that in my cookie jar. I don't know if I told you about my cookie jar. My cookie jar. So I read this actually from a book. David Goggins, he was a ex-Navy SEAL guy. And he's got a book out. Somebody gifted it to me. It does have some language in it, but one of the big things I took out of that was the cookie jar. So he has been, he has weighed as much as 300 pounds in the past. He's this ultra marathon runner, he'll run 50 miles or 100 miles, but there was one big thing that I took away from that book, and one of the things I've been trying to do, I've been trying to go back to books that have really had like a big impact on me. So going back and trying to figure out what made this book so unique. So the one big thing that I took out of that, if I'm remembering correctly, I've been doing it now, has been the cookie jar. So the cookie jar, there could be compliments in the cookie jar. There can be different accomplishments that I've done in the cookie jar, and it can be from, you go all the way back to grade school if you want to, but little things like that to build my confidence or to maintain it. you and I understand, what the Bible teaches, like in Colossians 2, how we are complete in Christ. And yet, reminding ourselves of some of these things that we've done, or some of the accomplishments that we've done. And I think sometimes we go so fast, and this is something I've been really working on. We go so fast, you actually forget what you've actually have done. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a part of, I think it's the journey. It's humility and yet humbling at the same time. I think as we grow, we start to really learn that our lives are meant to glorify God, and it's so much less about us. Yeah. But at the same time, in that journey, you can have moments of loneliness and self-doubt. I think it's just that true spiritual warfare of flesh and spirit. And anytime I get a card or a word of affirmation, I save it in a drawer in the living room. And very seldomly, but there are times where I'm just like, I just need to be reminded that I matter, or that this matters, or to continue to go out and try to be a light. So I love the cookie jar concept.
Yeah.
To implement within the family as well.
Yeah. Well, the confidence crisis, let's talk about that for a little bit. So the last time you and I talked, we talked a little bit about social media. I don't think I had done it at that time, but since then, so I've deleted all my social media accounts. Did I tell you about that?
You were in process. It was only Instagram at the time.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it's
an update.
Yeah. So it's been about a month now, and Nikki, my wife, she deactivated her Facebook account. So this last month has just kind of been this eye opener for us. And I don't know, it's always a little dangerous kind of talking about this, because on one hand, it could come off kind of preachy, and then I get on a soapbox. But the reason why I'm sharing this is with the confidence crisis. There have been women that have reached out to my wife, just saying, man, I'm actually somewhat jealous that you've gotten off of social media, and they've shared with her, some of the struggles. And it's just got me thinking a lot more, especially with our young people. I know Facebook may not be like the big thing. I know other ones like TikTok and Instagram may be a little bit bigger for the younger generation, but I just feel better. Like this past month, if that makes sense, I just feel better, mentally, and I just feel like I'm slowing down more. And it's so easy to kind of get trapped into, and I know you're the type of person, I'm sure, that wants to help as many people as possible. I mean, with everything you've done with Girl Talk, but with social media, and you help me out here, it feels like, there's always something you have to say, or something you have to do, or someone you have to help. And it's just not feasible. It's not feasible where we're chasing so many things. And what I told Nikki most recently, I said, we've been chasing so much, and it's time that we chase one another even more. And we could say the same thing truly about God, if we really talk about that. But what do you think what are your thoughts, feelings with social media and the connection with the confidence crisis?
So I can tell you with certainty, we've seen a correlation in young girls' confidence if she has just even an Instagram account or not. And then as a woman, if I can even remove myself from Girl Talk here, and as a mom of two girls, 5 years old and 2 years old, the feelings that I feel if I'm really actively being self-aware when I'm scrolling through Instagram, and for me, Facebook. I don't tweet, just for context, don't tweet. I don't have a TikTok account. And I don't Snapchat. I'm definitely like a grandma in the social media world. But there is a direct correlation, just even personally. So when you dive in to a young girl's world and her relationship with social media, and we just, we've talked twice now about a girl's most formative years, you're seeing everyone at their best. And then you're also tapped into not just a lack of community of believers, but you're getting people making fun of it So I think spiritually it becomes very confusing and challenging.
Yeah.
And the end result is probably the most staggering in what we found in our research.
Okay.
And that is apathy.
Mm.
People, and especially young girls, just are worn down. They don't know what to believe. They don't know who to believe. And they're seeing everything that is beautiful, look this way, feel this way. And now they have ads marketing to them. And there becomes this real like dystopia, right? Like you're connected more than ever, but yet so disconnected in the ways that really matter. And I think when I look into my life introspectively and as a believer, the way God designed us is to be community oriented, to be in community, to need one another. And there was only so much we could, if we were in a smaller community at a time where we needed each other. And this is the way it used to be. You weren't hearing at all hours of the day every major tragedy that was happening in the world on top of this, right? You didn't hear earthquake over here and this tsunami over here and, sex trafficking over here. And, I could go on and on and on. This, massive hurricane down there. And you're just constantly hearing things that previously we would have really only heard about when they were impacting us. So when you try to go back to the way it used to be, and I know we're not there yet. Not there yet. We're so far from there now. But when you go back to how are we able to maintain healthy relationships, marriages, and keep our kids healthy and not struggling with mental illness, it was to not be as connected to people that we cannot be in community with. And I think there's really something to this. And so when we look at Girl Talk, it is community. You show up in person. You love these girls. You champion them. You celebrate them. Doesn't mean we can't be in community with people just like you and me or Nikki, like that we can't be in community. But we're bounded through our spiritual beliefs as well. But I will say it is not healthy, the toll that social media is taking in girls' worlds. And it is no secret that the people who are running and creating this in Silicon Valley, their kids are in low-tech schools and not actively on devices. So,
and that's so crazy too, because you said a couple of things. I remember an article by Steve Jobs, or a comment, I guess, years ago, and he was being interviewed about, the lack of use that his kids have with iPads. So it's fascinating how the people who create these things, they also understand it. But you said something else, and I want to share something else too, that you used the word celebrate. I think there's something important there. That's part of that cookie jar. And that's part of what I know you guys are doing at Girl Talk, where you're celebrating other people. But even individually, that's the challenge sometimes with social media, because you just feel like you're not doing enough. You're not accomplishing enough. You're not measuring up enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not, strong enough, whatever the case may be. And there's something there about taking a step back and really celebrating your victories. I don't think we probably do that as much, where we acknowledge, all right, you know what, I worked out 5 days this week. That's a big deal. Or, you've had all of these conferences or whatever the case may be. I was talking to Nikki about this, and I read this article about the addictive nature of social media. So I said, okay, I want you to imagine this for a moment. I want you to imagine that there's this new supplement available. More than half the world is taking this supplement. Mm-hmm. Everybody, is seeing some great success with this supplement. And you certainly don't want to miss out on taking it because everybody else is doing it. However, there are some side effects. There are some things you need to be aware of. It can be very addictive. Even though it's free, it can be very addictive. In fact, it's just as addictive as cocaine.
I think it's 100% more addictive.
It's unbelievable. Would we want to take something like that Or give it to our kids. You know what I mean?
Kids.
Yeah.
I mean, when seeing it in our own lives and to think that we would give it to our kids, it's so hard. And I'm going to add another little twist to this. It would be summer 2018 for our summer camp. Girl Talk has a summer camp, and we asked the girls their career aspirations. Mm-hmm. So summer 2018, Nikki was here. We had 3 girls list that they aspired to be an influencer. 3 out of 150. 2019, 12 months later, out of our 150 girls, 86 of them aspired to be an influencer, full-time career, professional aspirations. So we look at how rapidly this is changing our youth. And I look at some of my quote friends who have gone down the influencer path, and I can see its appeal. I can understand its temptation, but similar to your approach with social media, I have really, really dialed back. And there are parts of me that kind of grieve, like this, connection and the good that could come through, the good that did come through it.
I totally get that. Yeah.
But the trade-offs, I joke and I'm like, I could just post one picture of the girls and be super excited about it. But it reminds a whole group of people, hey, I need to touch base, or hey, I need to call. And your emails start coming in when you're trying to be present. Yeah. And you're like, if I not posted that one picture, they would not have even, thought of me. Okay. So then you shift into this influencer culture. Yeah. How really are these people? Some of them my friends, and then some who I follow. Yeah. How are they really actively maintaining healthy spiritual lives, healthy marriages, and to their kids, when I can have direct access to their Insta stories that documents every single part of their day? Is it filtered? Is it reality? Is their husband okay with this? Are the kids, is the money just too tempting? And then you really start to ask them these deeper questions that our 6th, 7th, 8th graders who are aspiring to be influencers don't even know to ask. And that it's a rhetorical, we would pose a rhetorical question here, but the last time we talked, we just said, we've got to remember that there are no norms. So to your supplement analogy, we had Vioxx come onto the market, and it was like hailed as this just unbelievable anti-inflammatory, and was ultimately responsible for what I believe was over 60,000 deaths.
Wow.
And it was rapidly pulled off the market. But I think that we have to remember that things can come to market and be hailed as champions, but what are the long-term effects? Yeah. At what cost are we willing to do this? And I just want to commend you and Nikki for just very consciously living and choosing to live an intentional lives, but in your role as parents and especially in your marriage.
Well, I appreciate that. And I try to, be upfront as I can be, where I don't think it would be an overstatement, to say that certainly there were, that I was addicted to it, where it just becomes, you want to check it before you go to bed. You want to check it when you wake up. And I went from, you said something there about being sad or lonely or, kind of missing out on the good things. There are good things. There have been good things that have come to me from social media, because I think when I was on Instagram, I reached out to you via Instagram to ask you if you'd be on the show. And, and I've connected with other people too, but I've been off because I've been called like the Facebook hypocrite because I've deleted and then gone back and forth a few times. And the last few times that I did it, I felt sad. I really felt sad, like I was missing out on something. Yeah. Now this time though, I almost went to a feeling of being mad, where it's just kind of like, okay, I've given so much of my time and I've uploaded 632 photos, and I haven't even appreciated the photos that I have. So it's just kind of been something, this journey that we've been on. And Nikki kind of had an epiphany with going through some things as well, and really celebrating some of the things that she's done the last 7 years. You just kind of get in this cycle, if not careful, where you don't really take that time to say, oh, wow, wait a second. I don't have to keep, looking for more likes or shares or follows or whatever the case may be.
And our brains are formed enough to know that and see how addictive it is to all of us. I'm right there with you. I will gladly, not proudly, but gladly admit that it is a daily struggle. However, our kids' brains they're not fully formed.
Yeah.
Girls and boys, and to have access to this is something that has, as you know, has become a passion, and seeing that direct correlation to a girl's confidence. I feel that sense of obligation, like we talked about, like to dive in and to see what is the truth here, and what do we need to do as parents to make sure we yield healthy kids.
Yeah. Do you have a few more minutes?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I know your mom has had a big impact in your life.
Incredibly.
Talk to us a little bit about how your mom has been so influential. I know your parents, were really big with education, but I know she's a special woman. What can you share with us about Mom?
Yes. So my mom prefers to go by the name of Go-Go. When I had our oldest child, she proudly claimed that name, and to know her is to love her. Go-Go is so fitting.
Yeah.
And she came from challenging past, and she was the youngest of three. Both parents worked late. She had to figure a lot of things out on her own. She remembered getting off the school bus and having to make her own dinner and do her homework. And so I really commend her and my dad. When they got married, they were both relatively young. They had all three children. My mom before the age of 28, my dad before the age of 30. But together they wanted to be intentional about the type of parents they wanted to be. They very humbly admitted they didn't have the right answers. They didn't have solid examples for the most part in their own lives growing up that could point them to the Lord. And they valued education, and they also wanted to raise kids who would grow up to be functioning and successful adults. So they were like, whatever that combination is, we are going to commit together to being that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so important to point out, because my mom was not that, famous, we talked about helicopter mom. She worked so hard, and it was not easy for them to send all three of us to this college prep school. But I will tell you that she had this figure it out mentality. Like, you've got to figure it out. But one of the most pivotal points in my life was a conversation I had with her in third grade. I came home from school devastated that one of my best friends in my class got his name on the board because he didn't have the right school supplies. And I knew, and so several of my peers knew, that his family could not afford them.
Yeah.
And I knew that this was wrong. I felt a deep sense of conviction and went home and told my mom about it. And my mom asked me, she was cooking dinner. It was chaotic. She'd had a long day at work, but she made time to listen and hear my heart. And I shared the story, and she said, Haley, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And I remember this vividly, looking at her saying, I'm 8 years old. Like, what do you want me to do about it? Like, you're my mom. Can't you just fix this? And in my mind, I thought maybe she should call the principal, or she should call the teacher, or she should take me to Target and help me get a notebook. And so I could give it to Robert and a stack of paper, and I could make sure that this didn't happen again. And yet she didn't problem solve for me. And she knew that, really, truly believed that my 8-year-old self could figure it out. So I came back, and we had this vision, and enlisted my brother and sister to have this lemonade stand, and money was tight, but she spent a lot more on our lemonade stand supplies. She would have just getting me a stack of notebook. Yeah. And we wanted to raise money, not just to help make sure that my friend Robert had school supplies, but that other kids could too. We thought, whoa, we raised I think it was like $86. There's 86 here. We had an $86 profit. Actually, we reimbursed the supplies, and we the cost of supplies, and we got our school to allow us to have this little room where the $86 would help offset any expenses that kids who couldn't afford school supplies could go, and kids who could afford it could spend money, and we would do a little tiny markup so it accumulate. But what what was I going to do about it? Go-Go's famous words. And that was a theme in my life. And specifically when I did not want my sister to have the same middle school experience as I did. And again, my 10 and 11-year-old brain, then my 13 and 14-year-old brain just thought, oh, I should change schools, or my sister should go to a different school, or, we should help, Kelly have more friends by doing A, B, and C. And my mom just, very humbly, but sternly said, what are you going to do about it? And with that, her kind of forcing me back into problem solve is a big part of why Girl Talk was born. And that theme has played out throughout my life, not just with the book, but as a parent too. And I feel myself taking some of those core values, if not all of them, that she and my dad were determined to instill in us. And that's a deep-rooted faith, a love for learning, compassion for other people, and the ability to problem solve and to function as an adult.
I love that. This whole idea, what are you going to do about it? That's such a great mentality to instill into our children. I had this organization called Appian Media. I talked to them last week on my last podcast, and one of the guys, Dan Kingsley, had talked about, he had shared a story of a young boy. He may have been 8 or 9 years old, and he just saw some homeless people, and he did something about it. He started making peanut butter sandwiches. And so it's just really cool to see how we don't have to be a certain age. We don't have to be an influencer. And that's something else too, Haley, I've been really thinking about more, where I'm actually getting more comfortable where, it almost feels like you have to impact everybody all at once, which you can't. I know I can't, but that's what it feels like, or that's what I even want to do at times. But if I can start with one person, if I can start with my family, most importantly, right, with my wife and my son, and then just kind of keep moving from there, like with what your mom, gave to you. That's such a powerful gift. So I really appreciate you sharing that story. I love that story.
And the Lord's going to open the right doors. I mean, we had dial-up internet when Girl Talk was started. There was no influencer culture or Instagram. And God, he's so sovereign, and he knew what girls needed well before I did. I think we just have to be obedient and listen and have a heart posture to the Lord. And I will add to that. You talking about one person just reminds me of one of my favorite sermons from Andy Stanley, and it's do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. And I think that message, it's probably been 10 years, if not longer, since I heard it. But in this age of social media and us questioning, is it adding more to our lives than it's taking? Where we're asking the tough questions. The real glue that holds our communities together, and when our communities are held together, so are our states and our country, right? And being that glue, being a light, that little precious little boy making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the homeless people in his community, that is the glue, right? And so when we really focus on how can we serve our families, how can we serve our communities, how can we show up and be able to glorify God, not ourselves, I really think that is where God meets us. And if our efforts are meant to multiply, with his help, they do in a way that social media never could.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. You mentioned the word addition. I want to talk about the word subtraction. So one thought that I have in mind is you're married, you have 2 kids, you have this nonprofit, which is rocking and rolling. So I always like to ask people, like, how do you do it? All right. So you're getting so much done. Do you have any methods or thoughts or anything like that, like when it comes to saying no, or when it comes to guardrails? Because obviously I know there's only so much we can do. So how have you been able to kind of navigate? Because that's been something I've really been thinking about more, the fear of missing out, and really just kind of diving into that more, because I think that has a big impact on us in a variety of ways. What type of guardrails or methods, whether it's, saying no in a gentle way, or, how do you navigate all the different opportunities that you have?
I will tell you, it took me a long time to learn, but to use prayer as the greatest filter in my life. Praying about it. And when you are actively walking with the Lord, when someone asks you to do something and you pray about it and you get a clear no, I have found that is the most loving way to tell someone, I have prayed about it and it is not for me. It's meant for someone else. And that comes from a very authentic place. It took me took me a long time. I know I'm 34, but it took me a long time to get there. Yeah. And to not want to say yes, for the pleaser in me to want to say yes. Really, truly praying about everything and knowing that God does want us to actively walk with him in it, even though it's not some major issue or there's not some fire to put out, coming to him and seeking his wise counsel and guidance and the little things equips me and armors me to be able to go to him with the bigger things. Yeah. And I will tell you that is the greatest weapon. Yeah. For just kind of holding the lines here with our family. Yeah. I have had to learn to delegate and let go of things, even if they were things that I once loved, and had to step into aspects of Girl Talk that maybe not my favorite or my greatest strengths, like development and fundraising, and less of the creative programmatic sides. And then there are seasons where becoming a mom has brought clarity, having two girls specifically. And I know I've shared with you, but not with your listeners, but we also had a foster daughter first, who was a teenager who's now in college. So getting to see this from multiple seasons in a young girl's life, I know that it was a gift that the Lord gave me, kind of a peek behind the curtain of what middle and high school girls are going through. And I mean, I if anything, I got the greatest manual on what not to do. And so it's allowed me to be a much more active, present wife and mom to our girls, and to know that the greatest gift I can give them is love and time. And so it makes my no's a lot easier when I know that I am making a really solid investment in their confidence, their heart, and their spiritual development now that will bear fruit in the future. So it does make my no's easier. Mm-hmm. And if anything, without just totally losing it, being a part of a small community and going to funerals of women who have lived great lives. I walk away from some of those, some having incredible careers, even here in Atlanta, incredible careers, professional accolades. But the ones where I walk out feeling changed are the ones where their kids get up and they talk about how their parents loved the Lord and served other people humbly. And that is so simple. And if I could back into the last days of my life and have my kids be able to say that about me, there really is no greater success. So it starts to make all the noise fall apart, and it falls to the wayside, and the subtracting becomes easier, because my goal is that on this side of heaven, that this is so temporary. And if we can just love others really, really well, God's going to light our path.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that and your vulnerability with that. That's really powerful. And I totally agree with what you said. Funerals put everything into perspective, and it's hard sometimes talking about death and just the future. But, I've been thinking about that more. And you said you're 34. I'll be 42 this month. So I kind of view there's this book I read that had a big impact on me. It's called Halftime. So I kind of like looking at life. It's called Halftime. It was really good. I kind of look at life like a basketball game. So like when I turned 40, that was me going into the locker room, right? It's halftime. I need to make some in-game adjustments.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and now I'm in the third quarter. So you're still in the second quarter. You got like 6 minutes left in the second quarter.
Yeah, fun locker room.
So, but it really does put a lot of things into perspective. So let me ask you a couple more questions if I can. What book has had a big impact on you? I mentioned earlier I have one of the biggest books that had a big impact on me was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. One of my doctors gave me the book, and the impact that it had was the rich dad surrounded himself with people who were smarter than him. So when I thought about getting into preaching full time, this was back in 2008. I heard about this opportunity in Beaumont, Texas, and there were two preachers there that I think had about 50 or 60 years of preaching experience. So I said, well, they know a little bit more. They know a lot more than I do. So I kind of want to be like that rich dad, surround myself with people smarter than me. So, and I somehow gave that book away, and I found it 2 weeks ago at this store for like 25 cents. I bought it again because I'm now going back. I want to think about all these books. So if there's a book that's had an impact on you or something that just sticks out, what book might that be?
So that's an easy answer. Elizabeth Elliot, A Path Through Suffering. She wrote it in the early 90s, and she was a missionary. Her story is a beautiful one. There's actually a film about her journey, but she so deeply rooted in truth and talks about the gifts of suffering. And I had a feeling you were going to ask this question.
There it is.
So I dog-eared, I think, probably the wisest words that we as Christians can offer people in times of suffering, and suffering looks differently for all of us. The film is called The Sharp End of the Spear, if anyone's interested. I'm going to read it. It says, if the cross is the place where the worst thing that could happen happened, it is also the place where the best thing that could have happened happened. Ultimate hatred and ultimate love met on these two cross pieces of wood. Suffering and love were brought into perfect harmony. And I just find that so humbling, because when we think we're dealing with our darkest days or our toughest times, often we look back on that, and that's where we really feel true sanctification, or we feel the presence of the Holy Spirit. And as we move beyond that time, we long for that closeness of community and connection to God. And so I think that in this season of a pandemic, our fight for racial justice and an election year on top of that, and if you're like me in Atlanta, the land of CNN, the CDC, we just had Pride Month. It's pretty confusing times around here. And there you see a lot of suffering, a lot of heartache. And I found myself going back through this book on so many occasions. It really encourages us to ask the Lord to teach us, help us learn, and to find just as much peace in the storms as we do in the sunshine. And we've heard the valley and mountaintop analogy, but just to really know that to be so solid in our faith that we are not wavered during the challenging times. And I'm just constantly asking him, teach me, what am I supposed to be learning in this time? So A Path Through Suffering, the subtitle is Discovering the Relationship Between God's Mercy and Our Pain. And it's one of those that I just keep going back to over and over, and it helps me find peace, and not, as you and I both say, we are doers and like we're problem solvers, and we have that, what are you going to do about it? And go in my head. And sometimes these problems the world is facing, it's hard for me to find a sense of peace and not get in my head, and really understanding that God is sovereign and that there is beauty in this pain and suffering that's happening. And I can just actively pray and love the people in my life really well.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. It's been interesting too, because I've had a lot of conversations with people recently about suffering. I'm going to do a sermon called If, Why, and Where. If, why, and where. Those were questions by this man named Gideon in the book of Judges, in Judges chapter 6. Yes. And one of the things that I try to do, Haley, when I study with people, particularly with this subject on suffering, someone reached out to me and I sent them 3 sermons in my sermon outlines because they were talking to someone or wanted to talk to someone or needed to talk to someone about suffering, where there's some doubts now about God and why is God allowing these things to happen? But that's the first place I want to take people. I want to take people back to the cross where God, he allowed his son to suffer. And if he allowed his son to suffer, then there should be some expectation as well that there's going to be some suffering for us here. And that may sound a little bit harsh, but it's something for us to think about because, Jesus is our example. In fact, we know that's what the Bible teaches in the New Testament. You will be persecuted. The godly will be persecuted. And I can't remember who made the quote or who said this, but I really love it. They said, suffering does not make you unique.
Mm.
How you respond to suffering is what makes you unique.
That is so
good,
so true. And should we not be teaching that to our kids? I mean, through our actions, not just our words.
Yeah.
Because it is. And think of, and look, this is not like by any stretch to like toot my own horn here, but the suffering that I experienced as a 10-year-old, had I not experienced that as an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old, and it was suffering that paled in comparison to global suffering, right? Like was so tiny, but the Lord was so at work in that. Had it just been this happy-go-lucky, experience, had I not been the highly sensitive person that I am, that God created me to be, I would have never been the one that he chose to help just create a tiny part of the solution. So I don't say that for me, but more to glorify his ultimate plan and call for our lives. And Ephesians 2:10 is just what I cling to, and that we are masterpieces created in God's image, but truly he created us for good works before we were ever born. And so when you think about that, you're like, wow, we really are walking this path that he planned for us. And he will use our suffering just as much as he will use our victory for his glory.
Yeah. No, that's great. You got me fired up.
Will you send me your sermon notes? So if, what, or if, why, and where?
If, why, and where.
And Gideon, we just studied him in the Faith Ball, which is
did you?
It was a study, and it was just how the Lord has a plan, and he will find you in when you least expect it. And,
yeah. And the interesting thing, well, I'll stop here because I'll keep going, and it'll make me go back to Judges chapter 6. Well, where can people find you, and how can people support Girl Talk?
So Girl Talk's website is mygirltalk.org, and everything anyone would need to know about bringing a chapter to your community is on our site. You would click Start a Chapter. I think it's definitely worth noting that there are no strings attached. It is 100% free. We seek volunteers like Nikki, your wife, who served as an advisor. The time commitment is about 2 hours a week. And we need at least one high school girl and at least one middle school girl and a space to meet. And we have found that it's pretty powerful if you can just promote it and invite middle school girls to come. And we have summer programs, leadership programs, scholarships, all of that information can be found on our site. And we do have some social media pages. Girl Talk Inc. is our Instagram. We try to make it a worthy destination, especially for middle school and high school girls to be fed good and positive information. mygirltalk.org, completely free, and how you can support the mission through your time, through volunteering as an advisor, being there and loving the middle school girl in your life, even if she's not under your roof. Who do you know? How can you take an active role in being there for her? You can share if you have gifts and in-kind talents. You can speak at a local chapter. You can reach out to us. As a nonprofit, we always have needs. If you feel so led to donate, we have Donate Now, and it costs us about $10 per girl for an entire school year to support her. 36 weeks throughout the school year. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah. Well, Haley, thank you so much for your time. This has been tremendous, and you are a big encouragement to me and to Nikki, and I appreciate you and your entire family very much. And I know you're doing much good in the world. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep that I can do mentality, and we definitely will do as much as we can to help out as well.
Well, I thank you and Nikki for modeling your example as in your walks with the Lord, in your marriage, and as parents and as friends. The fellowship that I am so blessed to have and with Nikki as a sister in Christ is one of the greatest gifts. So thank you for loving her. I've continued prayers for her healing journey, and just thank you for shining your light for all that you do to keep us all encouraged. It is a gift as well. So proud to be in your corner.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. I hope it's been a benefit to you. Be sure to check out my website, benjaminlee.blog. You will be able to find a number of motivational blogs that deal with faith, family, fitness, and food, and also now with social media. You'll also be able to find all of my podcasts there, and also now apparel. I Can Do apparel. So if you're looking for some workout shirts or something else, be sure to check it out at benjaminlee.blog. And remember, I can do, and so can you.